Hi, welcome to Africa's Next with me, the Makomensan. Africa's Next is an initiative of Voice to the Nations and Break the Silence organizations that seeks to throw the spotlight on entrepreneurship as a developmental, industrialization, and continent building and advancement tool. Africa's Next is a special entrepreneurial mentoring program that is set to mentor Africa's next superpower generation. We aim to achieve this by pairing seasoned entrepreneurs with a passion for African development and advancement with up-and-coming entrepreneurs to provide direct mentoring and access to funding for the entrepreneurial endeavors. On today's show, we are speaking to somebody I personally adore, somebody who has lived the life that people wish to live. He's a mentor. His name is Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey, the Executive Director of Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute of Leadership Studies. He's a scientific researcher, a consultant, a diplomat, an expert in public health policy. He has an extensive background in international human rights, leadership and conflicts resolution. He's a distinguished fellow from the Institute of Comparative Studies, University of Connecticut. He holds an associate degree in health information management and a Bachelor of Science in Healthcare Administration from Purdue Global University. He holds a non-academic certificate in COVID-19 contact tracing from the Johns Hopkins University. And one of the major things he has done in his career is that he has presented and discussed research papers at several international conferences. In addition, he has chaired conference sessions on global health issues, corporate governance, human rights leadership, and in emerging community or economies. So that's the person we are speaking today on the show. He is very respected and known for his extensive charitable works, contribution to the community, and of course, his career has served on various commissions for reducing poverty in Africa, promoting economic development, and also reforming leadership. As I said, he's a very passionate person, and he's passionate about training and educating, and he created the Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute of Leadership Studies to help students nurture their skills and knowledge. Samuel, as the usual calling, is a frequent speaker at the United Nations keynote, and is a keynote speaker of charitable events across the globe, and is also the chairman of board of directors for African Girls Hope Foundation. So with all these qualities, this is the man we are talking to today on Africa's Next. I can promise you it's going to be an exciting show. You're going to enjoy yourself, learn a lot live on Africa's Next. We'll go for a quick commercial break. When we're back, we'll be joined on our interview screens by our guest for today for an exciting interview. Remember, the show is brought to you by Voice to the Nation and also Break the Silence organization. Don't forget to go to our Facebook page, like the page, invite people to come and like the page. This is where you have the conversation, any discussion you want to have, anything you want to tell the mentors that will be passing through the show. This is the right opportunity on our Facebook page. Let your thoughts be felt on that Facebook page. Go for a quick commercial break. When we come back, we speak to our guest for today. His name is Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey.
Africa is on the precipice of a breakout onto the world stage in a way and manner that has never happened before. And at Africa's Next, we are poised to enable this advancement. We believe in mentoring the next superpower generation of entrepreneurs to enable them push Africa onto the world superpower stage. At Africa's Next, we are pairing seasoned mentors, industry experts and professionals, policymakers and social change advocates, etc., with upcoming entrepreneurs across Africa to offer mentoring opportunities. Mentees stand a chance to access funding after successfully completing their mentoring program. Join the discussions on our social media handles at Africa's Next SPG on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and be part of our privileged entrepreneurs who get to be mentored by the world's best. Welcome to Africa's Next, mentoring Africa's next superpower generation.
Sir, good evening and welcome to Africa's Next.
Good evening, and thank you for having me on your show. Good evening to all your listeners around the world. It's a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you.
It's an honor to host a Santa Clausian. I have to say this. I'm beaming with a lot of smiles because of the fact that you are Santa Clausian. You are the president of Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute, the northern part of America. This is a great honor, sir.
My pleasure. Jacobs-Abbey College, it's as you know, is the only college in Ghana, and so we pride ourselves based on the the fact that it's the identity of our roots. And in as much as we've left the hill many, many years, we're still attached to the hill because wherever we find ourselves, the spirit of the Santa Clausians are with us. And so it's just an honor to be a Santa Clausian. I tell people it wasn't a right to be in a disco. It's a privilege. So I'm so grateful.
Privilege. It's a privilege.
That's right. That's right.
They call it the school of great men. That's why great men are. So let's get into the conversation today. Who is Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey? I just want to know a little more about you. I've said a lot. I read, and at a point I was like, how did this young man get to where he has gotten to in these 8 years? Who is Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey?
Well, sometimes it's difficult to talk about yourself, but I always allow my works to speak for itself and also to define who I am. But for the purpose of this show and for your listeners from around the world, I will basically say that I am a very humble individual. Like you rightly said, I began my early educational career at Adisada College in Cape Coast. Had an opportunity to travel to the United States after my schooling, pursue different programs. Started with an associate degree in health information management, and then also got a bachelor's degree in healthcare administration. Went on because I have a deeper understanding of entrepreneurship. So I decided that I took a program in MBA, and I just didn't do a generalized MBA, but I got a specialized MBA with a concentration on healthcare management and health policy. And of course, because I have a deeper understanding of the subject matter and I wanted to become an expert, I went further to pursue a Doctor of Philosophy, which is a PhD in public health policy. I'm sure you could see one thing cut across healthcare and policy. I have a very deeper understanding when it comes to the issue of policy. I think statutory, I think legalistic, and so policy is one of the things that I love to do. And that's one side of my life because you could realize that everything falls within the space of health and policy. I have another life which I cherish so much, which is the life of a conflict analyst and a human rights activist. I have worked in different sectors and different places in my life in the area of conflict, peace building, negotiation, and human rights, from civil society organizations to the United Nations, to African Union, to West Africa, Economic Community of West African States, and different areas of work in that area. So when I put the two together, it enables me to cut through areas that most people are unable to cut. But above all, in one word that I used to always to describe myself, I am a privileged child because God gave me different opportunities that most people wouldn't have. So that is what I can say for myself.
Wow, that's a beautiful line of run through your Adisada College time to all the way to the United States. And I can say from the few that you read, you're not doing bad yourself.
Well, I tried. I tried. You know, we live by principles of life: honesty, determination, focus, persistence, and goodwill. And so it becomes a guiding principle for me. So by the grace of God, yes, I'm doing well in every area of work. I took, apart from all the secular activities that I do, I also don't joke with my source of power, which is God. And so I am a minister of the gospel as well. So I take inspiration from the work of God and then transcend it into my secular world. So because if you have the backing of heaven behind you, you become successful irrespective of the opposition.
So how do you see Africa in the next 5 to 20 years, regarding the industry you find yourself in, the healthcare and the policy, including your entrepreneurship bit, where do you see Africa in the next 5 to 20 years?
Well, thank you very much. That's a very good question. This question I've been asked many times. I was asked this question, where do I see Africa in 5 years or in 10 years, when I was at the age of 17. And I was asked that same question again when I turned 21. I was asked that same question again when I turned 32. I was asked that same question again when I turned 40. And now I'm being asked that same question again in my mid-40s. Now, the reason why this question kept coming up is because Africa, with all its potentials and with all the opportunities available to us, we are able to take advantage of the resources that we have. And so that has created a level of stagnation for us as a continent. I tell people all the time that God is a very interesting God, because in spite of everything, he gave Africa what the rest of the world do not have. We have bauxite, we have magnesium, we have gold, we have diamond, we have timber, we have desert, we have oil, just name it. Every single natural resources that will make our continent great, we have it. But the question is, why has Africa development hasn't shifted for a long time? It tells you that there's something called leadership. Leadership plays a very pivotal role in the development of every nation. A country that does not have the requisite skills and capacity for leadership will continue to remain stagnant and will not be able to move to the next level of development. One may ask, but why are you saying that? If you were to be in Ghana, Ghana has developed tremendously since the last 10 years or the last 20 years. But then one would say that that's true. But on what metrics are you measuring the development? Are you saying that because government did what it's expected of her to do, so you are giving government kudos? Let me give you a hypothetical metaphor. So for instance, you are a father, and it is your responsibility to take care of your children and send them to school. Now, because you did that, do you want us to give you a trophy? Oh no, it's your responsibility. We elected you as a government to help develop the country. And so if you do the basic things that we were elected to do, nobody should give you, yeah, we congratulate you for doing what you are supposed to do, but you haven't gone above and beyond. Above and beyond is what makes one unique. Now, the whole world is talking about Rwanda for a reason. It's because the leadership of Rwanda is going above and beyond. Ghana, for instance, exactly, Paul Kagame is doing extremely well because it's going above and beyond, taking advantage of technology, taking advantage of human capacity and human resource, and transforming the country into a better country. And so if you ask me this question that I've been asked many times.
With that, does it look as if Paul Kagame and his Rwanda country are leading the race to the level we expect Africa to get to? Are they leading the race? Are they giving the other African countries the gap? Or he's just doing his bit and others are also catching up?
Well, unfortunately, he's doing his bit and others, it's a catch-up game. But you see, the African continent, I was actually going to talk about the regional integrations. See, the African continent runs within the regional integration. So you have the ECOWAS, you have SADC, then you have the Great Lakes, then you ask yourself, so why is it that it is so difficult for one to travel from Accra to Lagos by road? If we have regional integration, then I should be able to go through the borders without any difficulty, without paying any bribe to anybody. Nobody should extort what I have. there should be a free flow of movement. Now, why is it that anyone who has traveled that route has a complaint? It means that somebody who has been entrusted with free flow of movement within the West African Regional Integration Program is not doing his or her work properly. That is why people will get stuck and sleep at the semi-border for many hours and pay bribes before they can cross through the border. It's unfortunate. Now, when you have such challenges, the problem you're going to encounter here is that we spend the same energies that we're supposed to use to develop the country to talk about the same thing over and over and over again. And so that's why I go back to the original question you asked, which I've been asked almost 7 times, because we are unable to move forward. If you ask me, where do I see Africa in the next 5 years? Promising, but can we get there? I doubt it. Because in order for us to get there, there's a certain level of work that needs to be done. The younger generation need to be empowered. Our educational system needs to shift and change critically, because most of our educational system in Africa, particularly in Ghana as a case study, is read the textbooks, chew it, let it stay in your mind, take an exam, pass, and you are considered intellectual. We have downplayed the effort of people with skill. And so young mechanics, carpenters, masonry, all those, we have no regard for them, because we consider them to be a type of people who do not have the intellectual capability in order for them to be able to, as it were, move forward. And so I will tell you that, yes, 5 years from now in Africa, it looks very promising. I'll use the word carefully, promising, but we need to integrate technology. We need to empower young people. We need to turn educational system and a whole lot. If we are able to do that, then I can assure you that some level of achievement will be made in Africa.
Talking about that, sir, you are a policy analyst. What has your industry particularly done to make sure that the various plans that we have as a continent is being executed very well for it to push Africa to the next level as a policy analyst?
Well, the Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute for Leadership Studies, as you may rightly know, our mission is to empower, equip, and to help formulate policy ideas for nations. We in our part, what we do is to empower young people. We empower policy learners. We empower politicians by organizing specific training programs that will, in our perspective, believe will help these countries to have better governance. For instance, elections is coming up in almost the whole of Africa. And so one of the things, but for the COVID-19, which have delayed some of our programs, one of our programs is to hold series of trainings for good governance. People need to understand that policy is just a guideline. And that when we are formulating a policy, we don't make policy decisions based on politics. Because when you make policy decision based on policies, you are making on politics, then you are making a lot of error. Because if government switched hands, what you're going to see is that there's going to be a reversal of policies, and then we come back to square one of where we left off. But when we are developing policy, we develop policy according to the needs of the country. So you get a lot of people involved. You get technocrats, you get scholars, you get politicians, you have business class, you have think tanks, so that the brain coming together would discuss without any form of political biasness. And so in our institution, one of the things that we do a lot is to design programs to governments, to institutions, to civil societies. And if they want us to train them, why not? We design specific training programs for them, and we train them and we empower them, because we believe that like Albert Einstein once said, you cannot change a circumstance with the same mindset that created it. And so
True.
if the mindset that created the problems that we find ourselves in Africa, if we are using the same mindset, I guarantee you 20 years will come and will remain the same. Let me tell you a funny joke, a very interesting perspective. Back in 2001, at the Accra International Conference Center, heads of states of Africa came together to formulate what was then known to be the United States of Africa. And when they gather, the idea is that, of course, if you are forming a United States of Africa, then you are looking for one president, and the rest of them become governors.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you see the same mindset. In that meeting, it turns out that African leaders weren't ready to accept the fact that somebody is going to rule over them, because they came to the meetings as presidents and they don't want to go back as governors. And so for that reason, the meeting unfortunately ended not on a good note. I recall brother Muhammad Gaddafi of blessed memory, jumped in his car, took his entourage and left the place. I recall President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, left Uganda left actually the place angered because he wasn't prepared to become a governor. I still recall, because I was in that meeting, I still recall the face of Abdoulaye Wade, the then president of Senegal, so disappointed because he came with a pen from Senegal ready to sign. And the sad part of it is that this was actually done. The event was hosted in Ghana for a reason, because that has been an idea that the late president of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, has been propounding for all his life, to see Africa become one. And so they thought that having the event in Ghana would bring an inspiration. But unfortunately, the Ghana government itself wasn't on board for that purpose. It was one of the most disappointing times we encountered during the 2001 period. So this tells you that when you are developing a policy and you start looking at your individual effort, it becomes difficult for you to succeed.
So it's clear that our major problem as a continent is that nobody is ready to sacrifice for the greater good. We're all thinking about small benefits that we will get as a nation, but not as the continent.
Well, which is okay. I mean, I whenever I hear a politician say it's for the people, of course it's not for the people. You have an interest. If it's for the people, then you should be able to say, well, then Michael should become the MP and not me, because he can equally do. He also has an interest of the people. Everybody is talking about the people, but the fact of the matter is that, you see, we should learn how to integrate our skills and our ego and empower others to come along with us. A critical example is when in Africa, winner takes all and loser get nothing. Like, seriously, ask yourself that question. What kind of political system is this? Because if advanced countries like the United States, which is over 400 something years old, with over 45 presidents, and you're talking about maybe Ghana, which is 60 something years, and you're comparing that to 400 and something years of existence. If the United States is practicing a political system of administration where winner takes all, it's because they've gone through many phases and they will be able to endure. Okay. Why will a great brain, great minds who are serving as technocrats or ministers of state, because their party lost power, all of their wisdom and their knowledge is trashed, and new appointees come to office and begin to ridicule people who have spent years to acquire skills and an understanding of a terrain. You see what I'm saying? So in order for Africa to move forward, we need to design. I always advocate, and Dr. Arikana Kwa from who was the former AU ambassador to Washington, always propound that Africa must need to formulate its own political system. The reason is because, let me give you two names, maybe that will help you familiarize yourself with, and your audience to familiarize themselves with what I'm trying to propose here. Now, look at somebody like Chachuchi Kata, legal luminary.
Okay.
I mean, the brain is one of
brilliant
right?
man.
Now let's look at somebody also like our current president, Dr. Nana Akufo-Addo. Now, these are great legal brains, both of them. They used to work in the same chamber. Great legal brains. Now, the question you ask yourself, why is it that when Nana Akufo-Addo becomes president, he cannot use Chikata, who is that brainy, to help its legal system, to help the Ghanaian legal system to reform? Why will Chikata's brain become exactly? Because why will Chikata's brain become redundant for 6 years or for 4 years or for 8 years until his party comes to government, and then he will be made a minister of justice and attorney general? There's something fundamentally wrong with the thinking process here. Because if we really want to help our country to grow, my proposal is that every government should have a national think tank of experts. It doesn't matter which political party you came from, your knowledge is being sorted to help, and our people themselves should also understand that the development of our nations are important than our political affiliation. And so we should not have a problem if we know that, like we have a crisis, we are dealing with COVID-19. Now, whether you like it or not, the past president, John Mahama in Ghana, for instance, dealt with Ebola during his tenure as a president. Ghana may not necessarily have a huge case of Ebola, or even if any at all, but the preparedness towards it is there. And so for that reason, when we are dealing with COVID-19, we should be able to consult and say, hey, when the Ebola crisis broke off, what did you do? What were the strategic plans that you put in place? And see if we can pick some good nuggets from there and apply it to the work that we're doing. But then it becomes a problem that we can't even consult. And that is why in Africa, we see a lot of we retrograding instead of going forward, because the people that we serve, the community that we run with, unfortunately, focuses on self-centeredness, and they see politics as a fight rather than development.
So fantastic. You mentioned COVID-19. That will be our next line of question. And from the little write-up that we read about you, realize that you have a non-academic certificate relating to dealings with COVID-19 and contact tracing. So how has COVID-19 affected your industry as a leadership and policy analyst? How has it really affected your industry?
Well, that's a very interesting question when it comes to the novel virus, otherwise known as COVID-19. I am sure the world never expected that today, Michael and I will be having a conversation in the US and in Ghana. The reason is because it depends on the lens that you are wearing and how you see challenges when they come your way. Whether we like it or not, the COVID has changed our way of behavior. It has changed a lot of things, both negative and positively. Majority of people never expected that their life will be so impacted just as we are now. But again, I like to dwell much on the positive end of the COVID-19 to the negativity which has been on media all over the world. Now, a few people have asked me, why is it that the media talks about COVID-19 in a negative way in such a manner? But I always tell them that, well, it has always been the same. Nothing has changed. The fact of the matter is that in this dispensation, we have opportunity that information gets to us quicker than it used to be. Back in the days, you will have to wait for 9 o'clock news to hear about the pandemic. But at this point in time, once it comes to somebody's WhatsApp page, it is forwarded and it's reshared. It comes to Twitter, it comes to your Facebook, Instagram. So the information is right by your nose. And so when that happens, the problem you're going to get is that people are always quicker to share negative news. And so for that reason, our brain gets to absorb a lot of negativity. And that is why it appears that the COVID-19 have, of course, we agree that it has changed the way of behavior. But for us as an institution, we took advantage of the COVID situation and began to organize a series of meetings virtually. We have technologies available to us. We have Zoom, of course. We have FaceTime. We have the WhatsApp time. Now we have Messenger time. You know, you can use all manner of tools at your advantage. Now, it is possible that had it not been COVID-19, yourself and I would never have crossed paths, even though we both went to a Adisada college.
Yes, certainly.
Had it not been COVID-19, if I'm not in Ghana in person, I may not be on your program. But an opportunity through COVID-19 challenged us to go beyond the borders. And so the question I ask myself all the time, so it is possible. So why haven't we tried it all this time? That we could use technology to interview people all over the world. Why have we spent too much money, resources, buying equipment and cameras and all that? And now COVID-19 has just proved to us that it is redundant. We can't use them. Now, another area you should also take, and I'm going to the higher level, a deeper level of conversation. I'm looking at national securities. So our government spent tons of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, if I may, to stock their national security apparatus. So they get a lot of guns, a lot of Tomahawk missiles, got a lot of tanks, you know, huge tons of money invested into Department of Defense, which is okay.
For war.
For war. But now COVID-19, microscopic,
for the biological weapon.
A microscopic virus has just proved to us that in as much as we've invested our resources into this area, well, for the last 4 months, whether you like it or not, we've all been grounded to stay home. So the question to ask is that how prepared are we as nations to confront bioterrorism? Because this took the world by surprise. How prepared are we that when we have an encounter with circumstances like pandemics, the investments that so the actual question that comes out of this is that, are we misprioritizing our national resources and our funds? In our workplaces, you know, never did we ever thought or expect that a time will come that majority of us will be working from home. So one advantage or positive outcome of COVID-19 has also proved that even if our countries and our cities opens back and we go back to our normal day-to-day work, we can still expand our workforce base by getting some people to work from home for us. How about that?
I think that's fantastic. Very much fantastic. So about that, what has your organization done? Have you done any cross-country, any continental project to help educate people relating to COVID-19?
Well, at this point, as you know, we are unable to travel because all of our airports, including the largest airports in the world, in the United States, have all been shut down. So we're taking advantage of the Zoom technology. One of the things that we've been doing, in fact, we've organized a series of we call them global webinars. And the global webinars, we picked up a very relevant topic. And then we bring speakers from all over the world to discuss the subject matter. So we've talked about mitigation. We talked about survival of COVID-19. We've talked about diplomacy. We've talked about mental health. Next July 4th, we are going to speak on how do you call it, social change impact of COVID-19. So at this point, when we put our numbers of people who have been impacted, so far we've impacted almost 500,000 people with knowledge base, because we have a lot of participants who joins our webinars to acquire knowledge. And rightly so, as you read from my profiling, I am a United Nations World Health Organization consultant on COVID-19, as well as John Hopkins trained for contact tracing. So when people get infected, I have this requisite skill to be able to trace all the people that they've had in contact with.
We are talking about Africa. COVID-19, we know Africa, we didn't really expect it to hit us like how it has. I remember when it started in somewhere around December, January, Africans were like, oh, this one is a white man's sickness. This one will never get Africa. And it has hit us very, very hard. How many years do you think we can overcome this, our economy, everything relating to Africa coming out of COVID-19? How do you think we can do that?
Well, good question. When people were, advocating that it's a white man disease and this virus has nothing to do with Africa, it's immune to Africa, our weather will not even permit it and all that. I keep telling them, I said, well, you're making a great mistake. One of the things that I fear most is the pandemic hitting Africa hard, because it's going to destroy and wipe away all of our efforts. And for the reason is because, remember, if you don't have the requisite equipment to test, you wouldn't know who is infected. And so when it began, we didn't have the resources. And so a lot of people were already affected, but because we didn't have the resources, we thought that we never had them. And I was on a forum organized by the World Health Organization, and I did mention there, I said, well, the reason why probably you don't see it is because of the lifestyle of most Africans. A lot of us do a lot of working, a lot of walking, a lot of us don't drive, so we have to struggle to fight for vehicles. And so our energy level is very strong.
It's high.
And the type of food we eat in the Western world, we call it organic there. In Africa, it is not organic. It's our normal food. We eat natural processing food. And so all those help boost our immune system. And so for that reason, we don't seem to know people who have until we started testing. Now, when we started testing, you realize that the numbers are high, because now that is the scientific way by which to get to know that people are actually being impacted by the virus. Now, my greatest fear is that if government does not put in requisite measurements to keep the problem, once it gets into our villages, that is where the problem is. Because once it hits that path of our countries, a lot of lives will be wasted, because one, we don't even have hospitals there in the first place. We don't have ventilators, and as you know, if you know how the COVID-19 works, it immediately affects your respiratory system. And so if you can't breathe and you need ventilators, and our hospitals we don't even have the hospitals, let alone have the ventilators. And the sad part of it is that even if you have the hospital and you have the ventilators, you also dealt with what they call the DUNSO, right? You don't have proper lighting system. So it's a huge challenge for the African governments. And so my advice, which I have given to a lot of them, is that do everything that you can to protect those in those remote areas of the nations, and ensure that public health workers will be sent there. The equipment for testing will go into those regions as well. And hospitals that are the regional hospitals should be immediately be equipped, just in case people get sick, they can easily be rushed there. And like we did here in the United States, I'm sure you may have seen in New York, when it surged, what the governor Andrew Cuomo did in New York was to convert a hospital, a hotel.
A stadium.
No,
Okay.
the hotel into a hospital.
Hospital.
You know, the U.S. Armed Forces came to turn a stadium into a hospital.
Oh.
Now, there was a massive ship, you know, a huge ship. The United States ship was converted. It's a hospital ship. Came to dock on the sea. Why? Because the United States has that capacity and the resource base. In our countries, even our government have to go and borrow money from the World Bank to fight COVID-19.
Come and build hospital. True.
You understand what I'm saying? So the reason is that's the reason why it appears that Africa didn't have much of it, because they were not testing. They didn't have the resources. But once they started testing, you know, because somebody I recall asked me, well, the government of Ghana shut the country down when they only have like what 100 cases or 10 cases, you know, and then why are they opening the country when you have over 5,000 cases?
Now you have over 10,000.
But I tell them that, well, governments will not use scientific data to open their countries. No, they will use economic measures, because government can feel the pain. Government knows when their resources are being drained, and so for that reason, economic decisions were used in opening some of these countries. Unfortunately, even in the United States of America, with all its resources, now almost every state partially has opened. We have about 50 states here. Almost every state now have opened partially phase 1, phase 2 of their opening process. But guess what? Just today, the scientific data that came back shows that the coronavirus have increased in all the states that open. But the reason why you see a huge surge is because, remember, we have a way of life and we have a way of behaving. And so when you are suppressed for a while, it gets to a point that you start to rebel.
Get tired, you want to get free, yeah.
So what probably we may have done, maybe our opening strategy may not have worked. We just loosely open the countries without enforcing face masks, 6 feet, or in Ghana they call it 1 meter.
1 meter.
Distance. You know, here we call it 6 feet distance. Maybe we are not actually, we did not pay attention by enforcing it. It became voluntary. And if it's voluntary, like recently we just celebrated Memorial Day and all of our beaches are open. And when you are in the beach and you are swimming, the virus does not take, the seawater does not take away the virus. So all the people
transfer from one person to the other.
Absolutely. So you see, so that's what happened. So unfortunately, now in the US, we have 2 million people with the virus, and the number of death is over 100,100 people are dead in the US alone.
But
you know,
that's the difference here. In Ghana, I think it's different. Although we are recording a lot of positive cases, our death rate is extremely low. And
well, that's why that's, if I may, that's why I told you earlier on that our lifestyle is the reason why you see the low death rate. Not because we are doing something special or because our physicians are magicians and they are able to diagnose better than those in the Western world. It is because of our lifestyle. Our lifestyle, like I said, is that a lot of us don't have deficiency when it comes to vitamin C. We have the sun, it scorches on us all the time. Our vitamin Ds are very strong. We eat a lot of natural food. We do a lot of exercising. We walk a lot. Here in the US, I leave my house. My house is fully air conditioned from morning to evening. I jump from my house. I start in my car, fully air conditioned. Get to the office, fully air conditioned. The same life cycle. You know, if I don't make an effort to maybe go for jogging or walk, then my life becomes a cycle and nothing happens. And then the food we eat here, we don't have farming here that we just go, like we go to market and buy food. No, here the food we eat, everything is frozen. You get the chicken, frozen. Ghana, we don't, you know, now that it's becoming more westernized, they may. But back in the days when I was in Ghana, if you want chicken, you go to the farm and get the real
live chicken.
And, you know, so our body system is said that it has the capacity to handle some of these things. Here in the US, majority of them have underlying medical conditions. You know, so majority of them either has a cancer, somebody is surviving from diabetes and all that. And so once you get infected and impacted by this virus, unfortunately, by the time you say Jack, it has already taken your life.
So we're having an interesting conversation with Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey. He's the Executive Director of Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute of Leadership. It has been an extended interview. I'm really enjoying myself, and I'm also learning a lot. We're going for a quick commercial break. When we're back, we continue our discussion. This time around, we move from the leadership-based Africa. We come to entrepreneurial. We come to his work itself. We come to his work. That's the global Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute of Leadership Studies. He will tell us of how it all started, the dream, why he thought it wise that as somebody who was achieving and doing a lot diplomatically, he could shift from there and do something on his own. The Live on Africa's Next, go to our Facebook page, go there, like the page, share the page, invite friends to come over to Africa's Next page, where we'll be interacting with a lot of mentors, entrepreneurs from all over the continent to be giving you the various details into where they found themselves, where they have gotten to, how they got there, or the best way for us also to climb that ladder and get to the level or the height they have attained in their journey. My name is Dr. Mensah. I'll go for a quick commercial break. When we come back, we still continue our conversation with Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey. Stay tuned. Back from the commercial break. It's still live on Africa's. So this is the #1 hub when it comes to mentoring entrepreneurs of Africa's next superpower generation by the various individuals from Africa, entrepreneurs and men from Africa who have attained the higher heights in their various industry. We have been having an exciting interview with Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey. Welcome back from the commercial break.
My pleasure.
Okay, now let's get into entrepreneurship. How does a diplomat switch from his work and all of a sudden he's becoming an entrepreneur and he's doing fantastic in that department? Tell us more about your life as a diplomat.
Well, thank you very much. Well, sometimes when we talk about diplomacy, the idea that comes to the mind of people, it's the representation of a country in a big, flashy, luxurious environment with security all over you. And
SUVs, big houses.
Absolutely, big houses with people to help you become successful. No, none of those matters to me at all. None of that is, for me, that is not the purpose of being a diplomat. The purpose of being a diplomat is to fully represent an idea, represent a concept.
Hello, welcome to Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute for Leadership Studies, a research, teaching, training, and leadership institute that critically provides strategic transformational thinking to leaders and students with the opportunity to develop and create lasting impact in their institutions. Championed by a world-class faculty, one-on-one executive coaching, and peer learning, our programs are offered both online and in cohort sessions. Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute for Leadership Studies partners with academic institutions, civil society organizations, local communities looking to accelerate the impact of their leaders, more effectively engage teams, and build inclusive cultures of employee engagement and performance. We offer courses such as certificate, diploma, and advanced diploma in counseling psychology, marriage counseling, applied psychology, child mental health, conflict and peace studies, international human rights law, security and governance, and in gender studies. For enrollment, email enroll@jaglobalinstitute.org or visit us online at jaglobalinstitute.org.
Back from the commercial break. It's still live on Africa's. So this is the #1 hub when it comes to mentoring entrepreneurs of Africa's next superpower generation by the various individuals from Africa, entrepreneurs and men from Africa who have attained the higher heights in their various industry. We have been having an exciting interview with Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey. Welcome back from the commercial break.
My pleasure.
Okay, now let's get into entrepreneurship. How does a diplomat switch from his work and all of a sudden he's becoming an entrepreneur and he's doing fantastic in that department? Tell us more about your life as a diplomat.
Well, thank you very much. Well, sometimes when we talk about diplomacy, the idea that comes through the mind of people, it's the representation of a country in a big, flashy, luxurious environment with security all over you and
SUVs, big houses.
Absolutely, big houses with people to help you become a successful. No, none of those matters to me at all. None of that is, for me, that is not the purpose of being a diplomat. The purpose of being a diplomat is to fully represent an idea, represent a concept, represent a nation. You are a representative of your brand to a particular audience. So for me, as somebody who has been with the United Nations system for a very long time, working as a child protection officer to help children from around the world who has been greatly impacted by armed conflicts, from Sierra Leone to Liberia to Rwanda to Congo DR, Togo, and just name them. I have seen a lot. I've seen a lot of young kids being affected by war. And not only that, I have also seen a lot of negotiation. See, diplomacy is all about negotiation. It's about agreeing to disagree for a common good. And so one may ask, well, then why do we get the impression that diplomats are big shots? I tell them they are not big shots. They are people who have a deeper appreciation of using bilateralism to agree on circumstances and situations. And so as a diplomat, I have worked in many countries. I have particularly traveled to over 119 countries.
Beautiful.
I have met with different people from governments to civil society, to women organizations, to children organizations, and all that. And so I strongly think I have contributed my quota to that area. Now, my background in health propelled me to become a global health diplomat. And so I propound health issues from around the world. But the question you ask as to why will I transit from what I do into creating my own institution? Well, I strongly believe that, sometimes when you have control of the things around you, you are able to do it well. And our passion drives us to be successful. And so, remember I told you that I studied to earn an MBA. And so, to have a master's in business administration, it means that you have that brain of having an entrepreneurial background. And so I took advantage of that, and then I have traveled around the world a lot. I have seen what is needed. Now, when I work for big institutions, huge corporations, you don't have control. The organization is driven by a board of trustees and people, technocrats, who are easily influenced by the system or by politics. And so you are not able to champion the dream the way you want to. And anybody who has read Martin Luther King's book, I Have a Dream, knows very well that a dream is anything that bubbles in your stomach. And when a dream is bubbling, with all due respect to women, like a woman carries a baby in the womb. the fact of the matter is that the baby needs to be birthed. And whenever there is a birth of a new thing, there is celebration.
That's the point.
So that pushes me to ask myself, how can I locally help change the world? And I realized that I could do that easily by bringing my skills and my knowledge into an established institution. And there are a lot of people, a lot of young people around the world who, one way or the other, are looking for opportunities some way, somehow, to be empowered. They may not necessarily qualify to go through formal schooling. And so they are not empowered. They become disempowered. And I strongly believe that knowledge is powerful. And an application of knowledge actually makes you become a utility player. And so I created the Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute for Leadership Study together with my wife. Organization is run by the Board of Trustees, which is chaired by Professor Dr. Gerard Akama Onyari, based in in Kenya. And we have a formidable Board of Trustees. We have lawyers, we have doctors, we have pharmacists, entrepreneurs, scholars who are all on our board. The reason is because these are people who understand the concept and they know the importance of equipping people for possession. And so what the Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute has done so far is that we've identified a pool of people who need to be empowered, partner with institutions locally to ensure that the work is done locally. And so that skill is what we needed. And I tell people all the time that don't wait for government to give you a job. And that's a problem of a lot of students. They come out of universities and they are unable to find job, and you see them in the afternoon sitting under a mango tree playing draft, and if you ask them, well, there's no job. You can create jobs, sir. You can create job, ma'am. You can create your own job. It doesn't take anything to create your own job. All that it takes is for you to be focused, proactive, and acquire a skill. Thank you.
So when did the institution begin?
So the Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute began in 2017 in Washington, D.C.
Wow. And so far, what has been the impact in Ghana as a country and the other African countries? What has been the impact so far?
Well, the impact has been great. We've equipped a lot of people. We've equipped a lot of institutions. We've equipped societies. We've actually honored people who, we have a program every year in October. This year, unfortunately, because of the COVID-19, our Board of Trustees are still discussing whether or not to host it. But we have a program that honors people who have excelled in their field of endeavor. So last year, for instance, we honored 7 individuals with the Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute Leadership Award, which is named after Dr. Nina Mayoff, a seasoned diplomat. And it's a way to build capacity of people. So because we are a Washington-based organization, unfortunately, most of our folks in Africa are not physically able to come to our institute. And so we use online technology. We have a classroom, Blackboard classrooms that our students enrolled in, and then they take courses to equip themselves and to help themselves. So far, in terms of quantifying the impact, I would say that we have imparted a lot. I don't want to put a figure to it. I don't have the statistics until my program department to give me that, but we have imparted a lot of people because, again, remember, I'm a conference speaker. So when I'm speaking in a conference, it goes to the institution as well.
So let's talk about the development. Now we have done the Jacob-Abbey Institute of Leadership, Global Institute of Leadership, where you are training the individuals to get a level when it comes to leadership. What next for you as an entrepreneur?
Well, what next for me is to take the institute and decentralize it into the regions of the world. Now,
and how do you do that?
Well, that's great. So to do that, I am one individual who does not believe in duplicating efforts. No, it doesn't work that way, because then you're going to get unnecessary competition, which will not help develop your work. So my idea is that I will identify, I'm using the word I, understand, not me. As an institution, we'll identify institutions already on the ground. So for instance, we will open a conversation with, let's say, University of Ghana, to have a program within the school of like LACIA, Legon Center for International Affairs. We open a program with them. So some of their students will be able to take diplomacy courses directly from our school through our virtual program. Or we look for a private university in Ghana and we partner with them. So by so doing, you are bringing the program closer to them. They are studying locally, but their certifications is coming from international world because we are fully accredited by the US Department of Education.
Wow, that's impressive. We just can't wait for that to begin. So still on the discussion about entrepreneurship and the institute. Where do we lack as a continent? You have been in the work for a while. I think the mentees or the audience want to know, where have we lacked? Where has been that stopgap where our entrepreneurs are not able to continue their work? Because one of the major things in Africa, one of the major problems in Africa with entrepreneurship is the fact that we're not able to continue the work that we begin. And there are lots of business popping up, but the continuation is the problem. What has been that problem for you as an organization that you have realized that we need to work on as young entrepreneurs? We need to work on so that our works can be able to continue and be great like the Global Institute.
Well, if you ask me, I'll tell you that everybody have a good intention. Everybody has an intention to start a program. As for intent, everybody has one. What we lack is the ability to fully comprehend the vision. And so an idea comes to mind. Africa Next show, that's what I want to do. It's an idea, it's a concept. It just popped up into my mind. Did I fully grasp the concept? Did I develop the concept to the extent that I know that I'm going to have some standing blocks on my way? When the storms and the challenges come, what do I have in place to sustain? Like when you are doing financial planning, we always advise people that irrespective of how, you must ensure that there is a 6 months of emergency fund somewhere, every time, so that when the unfortunate hits you, at least you and your family.
Like the COVID-19.
Absolutely. So if you have no emergency fund, the problem you're going to have is that you expect government to give you a stimulus check and it will come and it will finish. So it's the same way. The problem with a lot of our people is that when an idea pops into their mind, they run with the idea without fully understanding the concept. And so in order to be a very successful entrepreneur, you must use the ifs and the whys. Because if this happens, what will be the plan B? What is the alternative plan to sustain this group? Remember, I always say that if you go back into your mind, you will realize that there are a lot of companies that spun up in Ghana. And majority of them are gone. Nobody even hear about them again.
Gone, yeah.
You see them advertising all over and all of a sudden they are gone. Like you ask yourself, this group, are they still alive? Why? It is because an idea, a concept was developed, but the sustainability of the project was not factored into it. And it is very important to become a successful entrepreneur. You must be very consistent in what you do. Consistency is the key. If you don't have consistency, don't even start it, because time will catch up with you. Like this program you're doing, if the vision is to remain, you must know that a time may come in the development of this program that you are going to experience financial challenges, if your sponsors are not coming the way you are expecting them to come, what is the plan B to sustain the program? Majority of entrepreneurs don't have that sustainable plan. And so when something happens like this, what happens is that then they gradually start reducing their hours, start reducing the time allotted to the program, and the next time they are phased out of the system.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wow, fantastic. I think this is something that personally I've gathered a lot from the issue about sustainability. So you do a lot of inter-country trading relating to the leadership school. How does that affect entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs coming? Do you think it's advisable that an entrepreneur from Ghana will begin to expand his territory to Togo, Burkina Faso, South Africa, to Benin? Do you think it's advisable for us to start thinking that way?
Yes, I totally agree. It's advisable because it's part of the regional integration. Because remember, when you are empowering people, you must empower them in such a way that it's not only limited to one structure or one block. And so if, for instance, I can reach out to 100,000 young people in Togo, guess what? If I didn't partner with a local institution in Togo, that may not happen because I don't live there. You understand? And so the integration with other partners, because we don't live in an island. The problems of the world will be solved when we learn to coexist and when we learn to integrate. Because by so doing, a piece of our work is expanded to these nations. And the capacity that we want people to acquire will be built. And that will help, because remember, one of the reasons that why we pride ourselves with our brand is because it's just like I always like to illustrate it with analogies. It's just like I don't know if Ghana you have a KFC chicken.
Yeah, we do have
great. You realize that irrespective of where you live on the planet, the recipe is the same.
True.
It doesn't matter where you are on the planet, the recipe is the same. The reason is because a brand is being maintained. And so the same way, if you are building the capacity of people and people become used to your concept and your brand, what you're going to have is that you're going to have a generation of young leaders with that mindset. That have that we can do spirit.
Wow. This is deep, extremely deep in there. Let's use the opportunity to go take a break. We come back, we talk about mentoring those who want to pick Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey as a mentor. We talk about the things that you should expect from him. I got a bit of the things you expect from him. I'm sure when we come back, you give us details of those who have started taking. Oh, I want to take Doctor as my mentor. You give us details of the things you expect from him. When we come back from the commercial break, it's still live on Africa's Next, number one hub when it comes to entrepreneurship and mentoring on the African continent and beyond. We want to say thank you to Voice to the Nation and also to Break the Silence organization for making sure, for putting this program together to help mentor Africa's next super generation. My name is Amako Mensah. When we are back, we talk about mentoring with Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey. Stay tuned, we'll be back soon.
Africa is on the precipice of a breakout onto the world stage in a way and manner that has never happened before. And at Africa's Next, we are poised to enable this advancement. We believe in mentoring the next superpower generation of entrepreneurs to enable them push Africa onto the world superpower stage. At Africa's Next, we are pairing seasoned mentors, industry experts and professionals, policymakers and social change advocates, etc., with upcoming entrepreneurs across Africa to offer mentoring opportunities. Mentees stand a chance to access funding after successfully completing.
Welcome back from the commercial break. It's still live on Africa's Next. We are having an insightful discussion or an interview. Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey is the Executive Director of Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute of Leadership Studies. And we are here basically to make sure that the individuals or personalities who have moved, entrepreneurs and mentors who have moved from the continent, who have attained greater heights, are able to mentor Africa's next superpower generation to help all of us with our hands together take Africa to the next level that we expect Africa to get to. So Welcome back from the commercial break.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
So we are talking about mentoring young African entrepreneurs. What should the entrepreneurs or the mentees who want to take you as a mentor, what should they expect from Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey?
Well, thank you very much. I think that the first question rather to ask them is that what are they looking for their lives? The reason is because mentoring is a very, very important step of our lives, especially when it comes to the development of our organizations, our individual personalities, our growth, and all that. And so the individual must know exactly what they are looking for. And then once the individual is able to identify what they are looking for, then they can ask for help to be helped. Now, for me, as an individual, I may be a very nice man, but when it comes to mentoring, I am very, 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 very disciplined and very strict. Because there is a reason why you want me to volunteer my hours of time that I could be making tons of dollars to use it on you for free. And so then what is expected of you is to be able to up your game, because the purpose is to equip you, motivate you, inspire you, encourage you to become a better leader, a better entrepreneur, a better organizer in your society. And so anybody who will have the interest to choose me as a mentor, just get to know that your work is cut out for you, because you will love me, you will appreciate me, you will have fun, but I guarantee you, by the time you are done with whatever range of duration assigned to you, to me, to mentor you, you will become a better leader. You'll become well equipped. You'll be ready for the next generation of African development, because a lot of knowledge will be imparted, a lot of skills will be put on you, and you will appreciate it. So for me, I think that it's going to be a lovely thing, but just get to know that it's a lot of work.
Yeah, from the little I read about you, realize that somebody you love a lot of reading. Should your mentees be ready to read a lot of the numerous books that you have read? Should they be ready?
Well, the fact of the matter is that reading is part and parcel of our life, because it helps our brain to develop. But one of the things that I'm going to say, and not to scare anyone who has the interest of choosing me as a mentor, I won't say that it's going to be a demand that you must be reading and reading and reading. Everybody has a different level of learning process. So one of the things that I usually do when I get opportunity to mentor mentees, to have a one-on-one conversation with them first. I will be in a good position to understand their level, because the level of education matters, the level of reasoning matters, the level of processing matters, the level of managing stress and anxiety matters, the level of negotiating matters, the level of dealing with people around you matters. So all this will be assessed, and once it is assessed, then we are able to take advantage of what can be done for that mentor. That's why I said that anyone who wants to come along with me must first identify what they are looking for, because it is what you are looking for is what you are going to get.
Wow, I just can't wait for the mentorship programs all to begin, so that we can be able to assign individuals to Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey. I'm sure you will learn a whole lot, and I'm very certain that you work a whole lot too, because this man is a man that just doesn't only rely on knowledge, but also believes in application of that knowledge. So we're wrapping up on the interview today. We want you to give your last words to the individual, the audience who have followed the interview from the beginning to now, and the various entrepreneurs who would like to choose you as a mentee. What is your last words for them?
First of all, I want to thank everyone, all of your listeners from around the world who tune in to this program. I'm very humbled. Without you, this program means nothing. It will just be utterances that we are just sharing. But because the intent is to make an impact in the lives of people, and because you chose to watch this program, we are very grateful. Particularly, I'm very grateful to you. I also want to thank Michael for having me on your show, and your producers and the rest of the crew. I want to really thank all of them. My last words to everyone listening to me now is that there is absolutely nothing on this planet that cannot be achieved. One of the things that I always remind people is that imagine how frustrating it appears when you try to get something done for a long time and yet you are unable to do it, and somebody comes around and within a second, the person fixes the problem for you. You look awkward. You can't believe that you spent hours trying to solve a problem and somebody came and solved the problem in a second or two. The reason and the difference between the two of you is knowledge. You are who you are, and the acquisition of skills and knowledge that you acquire determines how well you can live your life. I have always maintained that to be very successful, always keep it at the back of your mind. It is the amount of knowledge and the amount of things that you know determines your future. You only can talk about what you know. If you don't know it, you don't know it. So be very ready to submit yourself to knowledge. And don't feel too big to learn. I owe a PhD, but I still submit myself to go take certificate courses. It doesn't make me a meaner person for nothing at all. It helps me to understand perspective of others. That is how to become successful. You must first be determined, be focused, be honest, and be humble. And above all, be consistent in what you do. Consistency is always the key to victory. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Sir, you are very much grateful. Me, one thing I take from the conversation, the interview, is that consistency is extremely important. And information is also one of the major things that one needs to get so that you can be able to get the knowledge, and its application will get you the success that you deserve in life. We have been having an interview with Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey. He's the Executive Director of Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute of Leadership. He's a scientific researcher, a consultant, diplomat, and an expert in public health policy. Sir, we are grateful.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you so much.
So wrap for us today on the show. We want to say a big thank you to our guest, Dr. Samuel Jacobs-Abbey. Sir, we are very much grateful. Thank you to our sponsors, Voice to the Nations and Break the Silence organization. A special thank you to you, our audience, for staying tuned in. Our heartfelt thanks goes out to our production staff and crew. You guys are the best. Remember to send a message to Africa's Next on Facebook, indicating the mentor you would like to be paired with to learn from. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to come your way again, same time next week with another exciting interview with another incredible mentor. You have been with me, the Macron Mensa, on Africa's Next, where we are mentoring and empowering Africa's next superpower generation. Thank you for staying tuned.
Africa is on the precipice of a breakout onto the world stage in a way and manner that has never happened before. And at Africa's Next, we are poised to enable this advancement. We believe in mentoring the next superpower generation of entrepreneurs to enable them push Africa onto the world superpower stage. At Africa's Next, we are pairing seasoned mentors, industry experts and professionals, policymakers and social change advocates, etc., with upcoming entrepreneurs across Africa to offer mentoring opportunities. Mentees stand a chance to access funding after successfully completing their mentoring program. Join the discussions on our social media handles at Africa's Next SPG on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and be part of our privileged entrepreneurs who get to be mentored by the world's best. Welcome to Africa's Next, mentoring Africa's next superpower generation.